midnight screams.
My celebrity crush finally answered my DM. She's been giving me strange errands to do for her. I know it sounds pathetic, but every now and then, especially when I've been drinking, I find myself DMing celebrities. Yes, I know I would never, ever have a chance with any of them, but I guess it's a harmless way for me to live out my fantasies. God, just typing that out is so embarrassing. Anyway, there is a particular singer I don't really want to name, but I've had a crush on her for the longest time. My first DM was a few years ago, my freshman year in college, and ever since, there have been about 15 messages I have sent her way. They, of course, have all gone unanswered. That was until a few days ago. I love your music, and I love you. I would know how to treat you right-eyed, do anything for you, God. Just reading it back makes me cringe. You can probably tell, but I haven't exactly had a lot of success texting women before. My phone buzzed with an Instagram notification. I have it set to that setting, where it doesn't reveal the message right away. If you've seen some of the heinous reels my friends and I send to each other, you would understand why even a small snippet of those images can't be shown in public. I went about my usual routine till I finally got around to checking my Instagram notifications. Sure enough, I had a couple of fireable videos from my friend Ryan, but had to do a double take at the message just below his. She had responded, "Good boy, I like that." I looked down, pulled my phone closer, clicked on her profile. Maybe I had accidentally been DMing a fan account or something. Nope, verified, blue checkmark, 12, 6M followers. I checked again. It was her. My fingers quickly danced around the keyboard. "I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to type that yesterday." I felt my face going beet red. I looked down at my phone, shocked when the 3 dots showing a response was imminent appeared on my phone. Screen. "You're no fun. I thought you meant it." Disbelief overtook me. I took a screenshot of the chat and fired it over to Ryan. It took him only half a second before he responded, "Haha, dude, good one." I found myself performing laps around my kitchen before I pressed the phone button next to Ryan's name. "Hello?" His voice was groggy, surely shaking off the last vestiges of sleep. "Ryan, did you see what I just sent?" I was practically yelling into my phone, my excitement quickly sidestepping my initial surprise. "Yeah, dude, funny Photoshop. Maybe she'll ask you on a date next." He chuckled to himself. "No, dude, it's real. She really sent me that." Ryan went quiet. "Dude, I don't have time for this," he uttered in between yawns. "Are we still watching the game tomorrow? Even though Ryan and I live in Los Angeles now, we still catch every Steelers game together." "Yeah," I said enthusiastically. "I'll show you tomorrow." "Whatever, dude. See you at O'Malley's." Ryan ended the call. I looked down at my phone with excitement. Ryan would have the biggest egg on his face. I went back to my Instagram DMs. I stared down at the message, still in disbelief. Why would she be talking to me? It didn't make any sense. Was she hacked? Did she even run her own social media? That's what it is. Of course, she didn't. Here I am just talking to a social media coordinator who is laughing at my expense. The initial surprise that had shifted to genuine excitement was settling into anger. "Hey, asshole. No, too strong. Don't DM me again, or why even respond? Why give them the satisfaction? I was content to just show Ryan tomorrow and go about my day. My food supply was getting low, so I took a trip to the grocery store. It was less busy than you would expect for a Saturday, and as I was checking out, I felt my Apple Watch buzz with activity. It was a notification from Instagram that I quickly forgot about as I packed my groceries in my car and drove back home. I spent the rest of my Saturday away playing 2K on my PS5. As midnight came and went, I tapped on Instagram, where a notification was still waiting. It was from her. "Alex, please answer me, please. I want to talk with you." At first, I brushed it off. It was unbelievable to think that the admin would go to such lengths to mess with me. Halfway through another 2K game, I paused my screen and looked down at my phone, disbelief rushing back to the forefront. Alex? How did they know my real name? My Instagram handle had no relation to my real name. It wasn't an anagram. It didn't include my initials. Nothing. "How do you know my name?" I typed out, hesitating before pushing send. I looked around my dark living room, an uncanny fear spreading across my body. I clicked send. I know all about my fans, especially ones as cute as you. I stared down at my screen, rereading the message 8 times before it fully processed. I quickly scrolled through the handful of posts on my account. My profile pic was just some random picture I had taken of the New York skyline, while the rest were all aesthetic pictures I had taken from different vacations. Not a single one included my face. Who is this? How do you know what I look like? The 3 dots appeared immediately. Of course. I know you, Alex. Your dimples are the cutest. Your hair, that smile. You're perfect. I looked back at her profile. She was a blonde bombshell who had been rumored to be with every up-and-coming A-list actor our age in the past year. I wouldn't say I was ugly, just painfully average. Average enough to know that whatever this was wasn't real. You didn't answer me. Who is this? The 3 dots appeared before immediately disappearing. A video. I hesitated for a half second, but I had to know. The room around her was dark, but sure enough, there sat my celebrity crush in full view of the camera. She wasn't wearing her usual makeup, but was still stunning in the camera. She looked back at the phone with her best pouty eyes. "Alex, why won't you believe me?" She stuck out her bottom lip like she was a child. "I just want to get to know you better." Her mouth shifted into a full smile. My mind was racing, heart pumping. I stupidly allowed myself to fall for the worst thing possible in that moment. Hope. "Is this real?" She responded after a minute. "Very real. I think you are so handsome. It hurts my feelings that you think I'm joking." "What? But why me?" This time it took 5 minutes for a response. I waited with bated breath, my TV screen dimming lower as it entered power save mode. "Don't hate me, but I need something, Alex. You live near Westerford High School, right? I need you to leave a half-full bottle of water near the flagpole. Can you do that for me?" I shouldn't have let my curiosity get the better of me. It only took me 5 minutes to grab a bottle of water from the fridge, dump out half, and get in my car. After a 3-minute ride, I stopped my car in front of the school. I looked around the street, the only light coming from my car lights. Was I really about to do this? I crept out of the car, phone flashlight in hand. It was quiet, empty. I set the water next to the flagpole and as my fingers left the bottle, I heard a notification from my phone. The noise startled me, and I sprinted back to my car. When I jumped in, I looked down to see, "You care about me so much. I hope that wasn't too bad. I have more favors to ask, but I can't wait to meet you soon." I pressed my car into drive and hurried out of there. As I drove home, the only thought that lingered was how she knew when I set the water down. I woke up the next morning, slipped into my Steelers jersey, and rushed over to O'Malley's. Living in LA was great, but I was never a fan of the 10 a.m. kickoffs for 1 p.m. EST starts. Ryan was already situated at a table when I arrived. "Big celebrity guy here," he teased as we dapped each other up. "Dude, it was weird last night. She sent me a video and had me drop some water off at that high school near me." Ryan rolled his eyes. "At least make up a lie that is realistic," he scowled. "Well, look at this." I pulled out my phone, eager to share my evidence. I opened up the Instagram app, spying her messages still at the top of the list. I let a big smile escape my mouth, eagerly awaiting the shock that would overtake Ryan. "Here you go," I exclaimed, handing the phone over to Ryan. Ryan looked down at my phone with confusion. Alex, that's just the messages I send you." I grabbed my phone back from him. "Dude, stop being an asshole." I looked down, and sure enough, her messages were gone. Our whole conversation was. I surveyed the bar, confident now that I was being messed with, slamming my hand on the table when I didn't spy any suspicious patrons. "Chill, Alex. You good?" Ryan offered a hand on my shoulder, seemingly trying to broker some peace. "I'm fine, I am. I just have to go." "Wait, Alex," Ryan stuttered. He was too late. I couldn't be here. I didn't want to be in public. I ran to my car and raced home, collapsing into my couch when I got there. My phone buzzed with a message from Ryan asking me what's up, but that wasn't what caught my attention. A notification from Instagram. I clicked it. "Can we just keep our relationship with each other? I really want you, and I don't like to share. I've been staring at the message for 2 hours now. I don't really know what to think, or what I should do next." Last night, when this woman came into the ER of Riverside General, I didn't think it was anything out of the ordinary. People show up bloody and incoherent all the time. But this woman, Emma, was different. She was wearing a green military jacket, the lining slashed to ribbons as if she'd attacked it with a kitchen knife. She'd fractured 3 ribs and gouged her arms raw, but the damn thing was still on her, clinging like it had been sewn into her skin. I've been a nurse for 14 years. I've seen addicts rip out IVs and men twice my size foam at the mouth. But what Emma said shook me to my core, and for the first time in my life, I believed evil might exist. Blood bubbled from between her teeth, and in a gruff voice that didn't sound like it belonged to her, she said, "James, Perry wants to know if Kathy's okay. Tell me she's okay. I'm getting ahead of myself here. I haven't slept in over 24 hours. So you can understand, roughly. A year ago, I was working the graveyard shift. It was 3:15 inches the morning, and the doors of the ER flew open. A family of 4 was rushed in, all of them with gunshot wounds. 2 of the 4 family members were already DOA, an old man in his late 70s and a woman in her 40s. The old man was from a self-inflicted gunshot wound to the head. He had shot his whole family. One of the family members was still conscious, a man named Perry. We were trying to stop the bleeding when he gripped my arm and whispered, "Is Kathy okay? Tell me she's okay." Kathy was Perry's wife, and she was already gone. None of the family members lived. No one but me, Perry, and the other medical professionals in the room that morning know that he asked me that. And Perry died 30 seconds after I lied and told him she was going to make it. So when Emma asked me that same question, yeah, it chilled me to the bone. How could she have known? How did she even know my name? I haven't been able to shake it since. So once we got Emma sedated and placed her in restraints, I went to the waiting room to let her boyfriend, Ryan, know that Emma was stable. All he asked me was, "Is the jacket off?" It was, and told him as much. We had put it in a hazardous waste bag, which is why it was so much weirder when I went back to her room and the jacket was on the chair next to her. Its sleeve brushed my arm as I stepped closer, sticky with dried blood. I couldn't imagine any of the hospital staff would put a bloody jacket back in the room. It didn't make any sense. That's when I noticed Emma's eyes were open, like she was staring into my soul. "Tell me what happened to Kathy, James," her voice gruff again. "How do you know about that?" I asked her. Her eyes closed and she fell back asleep. I moved through the halls, asking anyone and everyone on staff who had put the jacket back in Emma's room, but no one seemed to know what I was talking about. It got to the point where I started getting strange looks. One of my colleagues asked if I was feeling okay. I wasn't. I'm still not. I went back to the room and the jacket was gone. So then I checked the storage room, the jacket back in the hazardous waste bag. I have no clue how it got there. I was afraid I was losing it. I was told to go home and get some rest. I didn't want to. I needed to figure out what the hell was going on, but I was basically forced to leave. I went back home. I had a couple drinks. Think I just needed to relax. But I stayed up all night, with thoughts of Emma and Perry. I couldn't understand how they were connected. It was proof of an afterlife. I'd seen people die, over and over, and now it felt like evidence that we didn't simply cease to exist. That maybe the people I loved, someone I'd lost, might not be gone forever. My mind infected. Which is why I decided to go to the house where Perry and his family were murdered. The house had sat vacant since the murders, which made it easy to slip in through the back. I used the butt of a flashlight and a rag to smash a small pane in the back door. When I first entered, I felt a shift. Even with the early morning light sneaking through the windows, it was dark. My chest got tight. I told myself it was because I knew what had happened in this home. I walked through the living room. The floorboards creaked every other step. I was climbing the stairs to the second level when I suddenly smelled something metallic. It made my stomach twist. It was the scent of blood flooding my nostrils. Then Perry stumbled through the foyer below, bleeding profusely. In an instant, he vanished, and then gunshots rang out. I sprinted up the stairs as quickly as I could. My hearing fuzzy. It felt like ice was rushing through my veins, and before I knew it, I had ducked inside a bedroom down the hallway. I'm not exactly sure how long I had been sitting in the darkened room when the closet door across from me slowly swung all the way open. It came to a stop when it bumped gently up against the wall. I could only see children's clothes hanging inside. A soft voice from inside the closet said, "Hey, come here." Then a child's pale arm protruded out from between the hanging clothes and waved me toward the closet. There was no fucking way I was going over there. The child whispered again. "We need to hide. Grandpa's acting weird." I was terrified, both by what he said, but also the thought of moving toward the closet. I came to this house for answers, though. So I went over to the closet. I stopped right in front of it. I couldn't see past the clothes. They prevented me from seeing anything beyond them. I could either leave or wonder forever what I would find out. So I parted the hanging fabrics and crawled inside. I didn't see the boy. I looked behind me, to my left, right. "Hello?" I said quietly. He wasn't there. The hairs stood up all over my body. I took out my phone and turned on the flashlight, and the boy appeared out of thin air, covering the light with his hand. "No!" he hissed. There I sat, face to face with a ghost. "When's my mom coming back? She said we will leave after dinner." His big eyes looking up at me. I realized he was scared. "Do you know a woman named Hannah?" I asked him. The look on his face shifted. His fear vanished, replaced by a strange recognition. "You know who I'm talking about, don't you?" He stayed silent. I could tell he knew something. "She was my wife." I can't tell you how badly I wanted him to say something, and I think he was about to. Then we heard furious footsteps pounding up the stairs from below, and I snapped back to being scared. "Shh." He cut me off with a harsh whisper. He backed himself further into the closet, hiding as best he could. His bedroom door flung open and smacked into the wall. I could barely see out from behind the clothes, but I had a sliver of a vantage point and caught sight of someone walking in. "Joshua?" An old man's voice called out. I heard a rifle being cocked. I couldn't see him anymore, but I could hear his footsteps. It felt like forever, but must have only been a few seconds when he moved back into my line of sight. He turned slowly toward the closet. "Joshua, are you in there?" He walked over to us methodically. I could hear my heartbeat, thumping like a freight train. I looked to the little boy, whose eyes were shut tight. I looked back out to the room, and the old man was settled right in front of the closet. Something fell to the ground. It was dentures. The old man said something, but it was mumbled. He reached down, and his hand was covered in blistered sores. He snatched up his dentures and popped them back into his mouth because I could understand what he said next. "Close your eyes." I looked over to the boy. He was gone. When I turned back, the old man was standing right in front of me. The hanging clothes slid aside on their own, and the barrel of a rifle leveled with my face. It was a split second, but I swear he was wearing the same green jacket Emma had tried to slash off herself. Then, just like that, he fired the gun. I saw the spark of the barrel and heard the crack of the chamber right before I closed my eyes tight. I felt something hot and sharp tear across my cheek. I was still screaming when I opened my eyes back up. The room was suddenly empty. The old man was gone. The silence was so complete it felt unreal. For a moment, I thought maybe it hadn't happened. Then, I felt it. A warm trickle sliding down my face. I touched my cheek. My fingertips came away red. Blood. My blood. This was proof. Proof that something beyond our world existed. And that jacket has something to do with it. I left, and I didn't drive home. I went back to the ER. I walked the halls, to the storage room where the eye last saw the jacket. But the jacket was gone. The bag it was in, empty. It must have moved, I thought. It must have gone back to Emma's room. I walked in and she was asleep. My eyes scanned the room for the jacket. It wasn't anywhere to be seen. Emma's eyes snapped open. "Where am I?" she said. The look in her eye was different. She looked around the room, completely lost, innocent, and scared. Then all the lights in the ER went out. It was suddenly pitch black. The noise of panic began to swell into the room from outside. Then I smelled smoke. Cigar smoke. It was strong. So strong that I began coughing, choking on it. The red glow of a lit cigar appeared. Its embers shed just enough light for me to make out the face of the old man, where Emma had just been. The lights came back on and it was Emma again. The innocent look in her eyes gone. It was like she was looking into my soul. "Ryan has it," she said in that gruff voice. Then she said, "I can help you talk to Hannah again." I didn't even say anything. I couldn't. I was too tempted. I would have let her go. So here I am, sitting behind the steering wheel of my car in the ER parking lot. I don't know what to do next. Do I go inside and let Emma out? Should I go find Ryan? I don't know what to do. If you don't hear from me again, it means something awful has happened. And if that's the case, let the police know that James, the ER nurse from Riverside General, is probably dead or worse. If your phone loses services and your GPS reroutes you, turn it off. Don't get me wrong, I love using GPS. Saves me time when there's traffic or unexpected construction, but it can be dangerous if it takes you to the wrong place at the wrong time, a shortcut through a bad part of the city at night, or a shortcut along a gravel road where your tire gets punctured and suddenly you're there for hours waiting for a tow. Or worse, there are places we aren't meant to go. Last night, my fiancé Rav and I were on a road trip to visit family. Our trip took us through northern Appalachia, and our phone service kept cutting in and out. When we hit construction, our pace slowed to a crawl. The GPS offered a faster route, so we took it, but soon we were winding through wooded hills and lost all service. My map was still active, sort of, but no longer giving directions. It just showed the route we were on as a colored line. The sun was lowering in the sky, and I couldn't zoom out to see where we were. We also hadn't seen signs for any gas stations where I could ask for directions. "This," grumbled Rav. "This is why you shouldn't rely on GPS, Ricardo." He only ever called me Ricardo when he was upset, a habit he borrowed from my mom. I was always Rick until I was in trouble. He also was never willing to be the one to drive. And I said, "Okay, well, if you want to fill my car with maps from Minnesota to Long Island, I guess we could kill some trees and go the old-fashioned route. We can just map out the route in advance and print the sections we need." "Oh, so like MapQuest? Back to the technological superiority of the 90s? I snarked. While we bickered, suddenly the phone screen went out and then flickered back on. The GPS was working again. Hallelujah! I thanked the universe as it began recalculating our route, and my spirits lightened even as the sky was getting darker. Rav never lets things go, though, and was still grumbling about how I shouldn't rely on my phone, about how I should look with my own eyes and learn the roads. If you depend on GPS, you stop learning to keep track of directions. You stop noticing things like that. He suddenly sat up. Haven't we already passed these signs? I hadn't been paying enough attention to notice, and only barely caught a glimpse of a sign for falling rocks, followed up with another sign for bears. I swear we drove by here a half hour ago, mumbled Rav. Maybe we did, I said. We were lost before. Now it's got the route, which is this way. But it's taking us further and further into the hills and away from the highway. I zoomed out and looked at the larger map. Maybe this is a shortcut to get further along ahead of the traffic. Rav fell quiet, and we put on some music. Beneath the stereo, something didn't feel quite right. It was hard for me to pinpoint. On the surface, everything was fine, and I figured maybe my uneasy feeling was because this was an unfamiliar route, and we were both crabby and tired. We'd been in the car all day. I sped up as the sun vanished behind the hills, and the sky turned fiery red. I'd fallen into the zone like I always tend to do while driving long distances. When the roads are long, empty stretches, and I don't need to concentrate like in city traffic, I sort of just let instinct take over and my mind wanders. I just drove, just lazily watching my GPS and the line on the GPS marking the road. The road ran on endlessly ahead. I saw on the map where it curved. Up ahead, the road began to turn. "Hey, Rick! Hey, slow down!" At Rav's shout, I slammed the brakes, swerving because the curve came on faster than I expected. I looked at the GPS, and it was zoomed in, and when I zoomed out, it showed how tight the curve was. There'd been some lag. Rav was clinging to the handle above the door. He glared my way, and I muttered an apology and drove more carefully. I am usually a pretty reliable driver. The GPS being laggy had caught me off guard. Rav glowered and said, "That thing is going to get us killed." More long stretches of silence, and the sky deepening as the first stars became visible. There was still a fair bit of light, but even so, I turned on my headlights. I was still following the long line of the GPS, when suddenly, Rav was screaming, "Stop! Stop!" I hadn't seen anything in the road, but his panic sent my foot shooting to the brake, and we skidded, and I yanked the wheel to bring us into the side of the hill. He was gasping, and I looked ahead to where the road went over a bridge. It took me a moment to see clearly what Rav had seen. A few feet out, the bridge was broken, nothing but the drop below. Rav and I got out and walked over to the bridge and stepped across remnants of a barricade. It must have been set up to warn vehicles about the bridge being out, but now it was in pieces, flattened and broken. Driving at speed, you'd never see these shattered pieces in time. Rav's eagle eyes had saved our lives. We stepped past the broken barricade. "Careful," muttered Rav as I moved to the edge of the bridge and looked down. Cars lay piled below, and what looked like a body spilled out of one of them at the bottom of the ravine. That's why the barricade was broken. Not just one, but multiple vehicles had smashed through it. Chilled, I backed away from the drop. The pair of us picked our way back over the shattered barricade and along the road. We were almost at our vehicle when headlights blinded us. A truck barreled toward us. I grabbed Rav and flung him with me into the hillside. As the scream of a horn shot past us, the truck driver laying it on, and then the wheels clacked over the broken barricade, and the horn faded out into nothingness as the truck went over. There was a horrible metallic crunching as it crashed and rolled far below. My head was bleeding from hitting a rock as we slammed into the hill, but luckily, neither of us were seriously injured. We hurried into the car, strapping ourselves in and quickly pulling a three-point turn and driving away, back the way we'd come, ignoring the GPS now, ignoring its directions to turn around, recalculating route. Finally, we caught a glimpse of a sign for gas and followed until we reached the station, where we called police to report the broken bridge. While I was on the call using the gas station phone, my cell phone rebooted. Suddenly, it had signal again. And now, the map was showing me a totally different route. A totally normal route taking us back to the highway. Police never found the broken bridge, and my GPS never tried to take me that way again. But these days, just in case, I always plan my route in advance. It's finally happened. The event to make me delete that stupid rando whatever app. I dealt with a weird dead-end road by the side of a railway, a creepy house with eyes painted all over it, and even a crazy guy with a very convincing bird call. But this is my last straw. This morning, I was bored to hell and back and decided to try out the app for the first time in a couple months. I pressed the little buttons, not really caring what it gave me, and eventually some coordinates popped up, hovering over a patch of woods. Obviously, I'm not putting the coordinates here, not super interested in doxing myself, and extremely not interested in sending anybody else into this mess I've found. But I did write them down for myself. So after a few hours of hyping myself up and getting the regular essentials in my car, I headed out just past noon. The location was about an hour's drive, and I quickly realized most of this trip would be walking. After parking my car on the side of a relatively safe back road, I secured my bag and started on my way into the woods. Now, I'm no wimp when it comes to walking through forests, so I easily made my way around the untamed roots and overgrown grass. I kept my phone up as the GPS led the way towards what I was expecting to be absolutely nothing. I did also do all the precautions. Texted friends my location and what to do they didn't hear from me. In the next 12 hours, I had means of defending myself, etc., etc. What I ended up finding was a clearing placed kind of awkwardly near the coordinates location. Looking back, I don't think the app was even leading me to the house. It just happened to also be there. Right in the center of that clearing stood the cleanest house I have ever seen in a forest. And I do mean a house. Not a cabin, but a middle-class cookie-cutter suburban neighborhood house. Surrounding the house, in maybe a 20-foot radius, was this huge patch of just dirt, which met right up against the otherwise unkempt forest grass. I walked up to the dirt, honestly a little less interested in the house, and more drawn to the wooden sign stuck in the ground just past the threshold. It was a list of rules, all printed in red against the birchwood planks, and at the top it read, "If you'd like to enter the house, please follow these rules." These were the rules. Rule 1. Your knock must be musical in some manner before you enter. Rule 2. Do not eat anything. Rule 3. The house is free to explore until the clock reads 7:15. After the clock chimes 7 times, you have 15 minutes to either leave or sit and wait for your host. Underneath that rule, crushed between those words and the words of the following printed rule, was a statement scrawled in chalk. Leave out the back door. Rule 4. Your host will greet you. You must respond in kind. Rule 5. Please, do not be rude. Rule 6. Your room is upstairs, second door on the right. Rule 7. You may leave upon the next chime of 7. Now, I found this weird, obviously. My first thought was that this was some forgotten sideshow set. But why would it be so clean? and I mean clean. When I had gotten closer to it, it became increasingly clear that there was no dirt on the walls of the house. The roof looked freshly laid, not a leaf anywhere. The concrete of the porch seemed power washed. And, because I have very little restraint over my curiosity, I went up to the door. In several long strides, I walked over that 20 feet of packed dirt and up the 3 steps to the porch. A rocking chair was the only furniture up there with me, creaking back and forth in the breeze, facing off in the direction I had come from. I focused on the door again. It was a pale blue color, and like everything else, was clean as a whistle right down to the brass handle. Above the door was a simple wooden sign with Home of Mr. March carved into it. Below was a doormat. Welcome, weary traveler, it said up to me. My fingers were already brushing the handle in an unconscious action when the rules rang loudly in my mind. Slowly, I took my hand back and just looked at the pale blue wood. I wouldn't really have thought twice about that sign if it wasn't for the chalk scrawled on it. The writing had seemed frantic, I guess, almost too serious for what I thought was just weird attraction at the time. I figured what the hell and played along. The only musical knock I knew was shave and a haircut, so I rapped that against the wood. After the ending, 2 knocks echoed into the house. The porch light flickered on, and I heard a record player start up inside. With a bit of hesitation, I opened the door. The hinges didn't even squeak as the inside was revealed to me. I felt like I was being pranked or something. It looked like somebody had taken a dollhouse and shaken it around. First off, there was a grandfather clock, not even 2 feet away from the door. I might have jumped, not gonna lie. Gently stepping around that, I checked out the rest of the first floor. The living room had a park bench instead of a couch, placed facing away from the mounted television. The dining room and kitchen were made up in a similar way. The most notable thing in either being the toilet propped up next to a counter like a step stool. And just like the outside, everything was spotless. There were pictures hung up on the wall and placed on end tables, but they were all frames still filled with stock photos. I could hear that record player music the entire time I was wandering around. It was just the same weird calliope music on repeat, but I couldn't find the player. The music just seemed to exist in the space with me. When I turned to check out the stairs, I saw that the grandfather clock had turned to face me, its clock face slowly ticking away the time. Choosing to ignore it for the moment, I moved past it to stand at the base of the stairs. They at least had looked normal, and on the second to last step before me was a basket with a note, written in neat calligraphy. You must be hungry. Have a bite. In the basket was an array of candy bars. I ignored it and went up the stairs. I never reached the top. Every step I took only seemed to make the second floor move further and further away, so I decided to cut my losses and return to the ground floor. Luckily I did, but off to the side of the landing was that clock, and as soon as my foot touched the final step, it began to chime. The arrowed hands looked down at me, the longer on the 12 and the shorter as 7. I questioned my reality with each chime. I had definitely gotten here several hours ago, but this was the only hour the clock sang about. The air felt like it was constricting around me with each chime, making me lightheaded by the time the 7th ring echoed throughout the house. I had stood there, transfixed by that piece of furniture, until the final waves of noise died out somewhere upstairs. You have 15 minutes to either leave or sit and wait for your host. I remember mumbling to myself as my eyes moved to the front door. My first thought then was of the sign and the chalk scrawling somebody had left who knows how long ago. My second thought was, it felt like the door was staring at me. There wasn't a window on the door. I don't think there was even a peephole, but I know when I'm being watched. Something was watching me on the other side of that plank of wood. I remember suddenly being in front of it. I don't remember taking the steps to do so, and I don't remember why I hadn't left by now. And leaning forward as if to open it, I heard breathing on the other side, more like panting. The sort of eager panting a dog makes after a long run and at the promise of water, heavy yet fast-paced. By that point, whatever reverie the clock or the house itself had put me under snapped, and I realized I didn't really want to wait around to see who my host was. I returned to the kitchen and looked at the back door. This door had a large window making up most of its structure, and I could see the dirt circle reaching out around the house with the forest beyond it. Seeing the sun behind the trees solidified the fact to me that somehow I had been there almost all day. I just simply couldn't fathom how. Maybe I was on those stairs for longer than it felt, or maybe I had stumbled on the most obvious fate trap in the world. Either way, I was leaving right then. The door opened with absolutely no resistance, and I immediately went down the concrete steps awaiting me right outside. But as I left, I felt something scrape at my ankle. I saw the culprit when my head jerked down in shock. A large, rather out-of-place nail sticking out of the door frame had taken the pleasure of sticking itself into my skin. I didn't check until I was back in my car, but that nail had cut right through my jeans and left me with quite a bad gash, just inches from my Achilles tendon. When I left the door, making sure it was closed well behind me, I walked straight across the dirt, then started the slow walk around the house to return to where I had emerged from the woods. I kept the house in my peripheral, honestly a little worried that if I looked away for even a moment, the whole building would just disappear. Because of this course of action, I was able to glimpse the front door just as I got to the tree line. I caught the briefest hint of something ducking into the door before slamming it shut behind it. I was going to just walk back to my car, not wanting to hurt my ankle any further, but my caution was abandoned, and my feet picked up into a run when I heard the angriest scream echo behind me. So, I'll say this one time and hope you take it to heart. If you see a pristine house in the middle of the woods, don't go near it.